Welcome to Return on Intuition, the podcast where strategy meets soul. I'm Erin McMahon, a marketing leader, startup advisor, mom of two, and lifelong seeker of what's real. In a world ruled by data, speed, and artificial intelligence, there is a space where we pause to tune in. Each week, we'll explore what it means to lead, build, parent, and grow, not just with logic, but with intuition. You'll hear from founders, creators, marketers, spiritual guides, and so many more. People aligning ambition with purpose and using their intuition as a real tool for transformation. Because when we pay attention, get present, and trust our instincts, that's when the magic happens. Let's get into it. Hello, this is Erin, and welcome back to Return on Intuition. It's been a few weeks since I've recorded a podcast. I've been returning from my trip abroad and catching up on work, and excited to get back and speak to everyone. So today I thought I'd talk about an adventure I had over the weekend, which is visiting one of my best friends from college. She was in Florida visiting her mom for the summer, and she just had a baby in December, and she lives in Madrid, and she came to the U.S. for the summer. She was originally planning a trip to North Carolina, where I currently live. And a few weeks ago, she called me and said, my trip to North Carolina is off because I've discovered my city baby hates being in a car. So not going, and, I'd love to see you still, but it's not going to work out to drive all the way to North Carolina. So I immediately said, okay, I'm coming to visit you. Doesn't matter how it's going to happen or whatever, but it's happening. And this is somewhat out of character for me because I have a very, sort of set schedule with the kids. I am primarily responsible for taking them to and from school, and also have a big schedule with work. I am primarily responsible for marketing for an international company, and also another startup, doing a lot of work with them and ramping up with their new marketing initiatives and team. And so there's a lot going on. And in general, the ego part of my brain goes, and by ego, I mean the part of my brain that is used to routine, schedule, what's going on. That part of my brain was like, what are you doing? You can't spontaneously take a trip at the last moment, and you have no plans. You haven't told your team there's going to be time off. There's a lot of work to do. Your kids, have just normal schedules and lots of needs. So it's going to be very difficult to make this change. But even though this is going on in my mind and running like a crazy tape recorder, there was also part of me that kind of thought there may be issues with a young baby traveling in a car after the baby has lived in the city her whole life and isn't used to a car. So part of me was like, maybe I'll have to, maybe there's another way I'll have to see Katie, my best friend. So as soon as she said I can't come, I immediately thought, how am I going to make it to Florida? How's this going to happen? And I ended up going for a short trip, scheduling over a very short period of time. I was only there for about 24 hours. Luckily, my mom can help me watch the kids and stay overnight to support their dad, who's, got a work schedule too. And so luckily, I have the support system that all that aligned, and I could count on backup child care support and my kids being completely supported. In the meantime, I, have other just schedule nuances that I know that I'm going to, not be able to work out in the same way, do the same thing, attend all the scheduled meetings, have to do makeup work, all that sort of thing. And, all those things, again, although the ego routine side of myself said, what are you doing? This is not comfortable. This is not comfortable for me at all. This is not comfortable to schedule something at the last minute. There's the side of me that was the internal knowing, yes, absolutely, I'm doing this. There's no question in my mind that this is happening. So I ended up booking a ticket, arranging everything, and went on the trip. And it was the most amazing, so fulfilling time ever. Not only seeing my friend and seeing her new baby, which was an absolutely miraculous thing, but seeing another friend who I hadn't connected with since college, and having that time together and speaking, being in a different environment, going through, what we'd been up to, how we'd changed since we became mothers. I hadn't seen her, since I had become a mother. So it was a really amazing and enriching experience. I think what I take away from this is that it's very easy to ignore the part of the brain that wants to do the harder out of the ordinary thing. And it's easy to fall in the routine and make up an excuse of the 10 or 15 reasons why, making the trip would be difficult, or, why it doesn't make sense. And I think the key message is, I knew once she said she couldn't come here that I was going to visit her there, and I was going to, make all the changes that I needed to, and sort of consequences be damned for some of the things I would have to, work on separately for work, or, things like that. I really wanted to make this visit. And I point this out because it is a soul knowing versus running with your your automatic brain. And one voice was a deeper sense of, yes, you're doing this, and the other side was like, was communicating, how are you going to do this? Why are you going to do this? This is stressful. This is, difficult. But honestly, it really wasn't that difficult. It just took a little bit more creative planning and, to be honest, discomfort of going out of the routine and the ordinary. And part of this is certainly my personality type, which is, I like routine and sticking with the day to day. And so doing something last minute spontaneously is not my normal thing, but also it gave me a chance to really push forward and listen to the intuitive side of myself and run with it. The other key thing about this is that a lot of the inner voice messages that we get have to do with changes and things that do mean, going and extending beyond our comfort zone. And it's quite often not a short trip. It's like, I want to change my job, or or is this relationship so meaningful to me? Or is living in this place still the right place for me? And a lot of those changes you can't just do in a weekend. So in this case, it was a change out of routine, sensing a lot of short-term consequences that would have a quick fix. And I saw the results immediately for it because, I planned a trip about, a few days out. I booked my plane ticket. Plane trip was kind of crazy because the weather was bad, and there ended up being delays and stuff like that, which still, rolled with, was like, this is part of the journey, that sort of thing. But, all that was very quick in succession in terms of me listening to my instinct instead of, going with the routine or my intuition, and then, feeling feeling the immediate pain of the quote unquote pain of, changes, shifting things around, shifting schedules, all that. And then feeling the immense gratitude and result that came from taking the trip, seeing my best friend in a beautiful location by the beach. Her, mom's home is in Florida, and it's just, the beach is a soul fulfilling spot for me. So that was beautiful to see and experience, and, connected that in that beautiful location. And so, immediately felt it was sort of like a fast forward experience of listening to that inner knowing, making those changes, going through those short-term changes, and then feeling the reward for that. And, still feeling like that was a very enriching experience, and I'm very, glad I did. But for a lot of changes and feeling of inner knowing that there needs to be a change, it takes a long time to acknowledge, feel that that's the right thing to do, because the voice is, sometimes persistent, but not necessarily screaming the same way as your resistance can scream and protest, and then going through with the result. So why this relates to return on intuition is because sometimes the return that we see on those intuitive things that we listen to doesn't happen immediately. And sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes months. And that is difficult because there's a lot of time in between for you to give up, change your mind, stay the current course, even though it doesn't feel quite right, and that other persistent inner knowing is speaking to you. But your ego slash, current mindset is very persuasive in helping you think you're safe, persuading you not to change, and leaning into the status quo. So what this lesson taught me for this quick trip, like, quick planning, taking trip less than 24 hours, crazy plane delays, what it taught me is that it is worth listening to that inner knowing that for me was very clear, because I knew I wanted to see my friend and have that experience. So that was never in doubt. What was, out of the ordinary for me, especially in this new phase of life as a mom, is, making a plane trip within the space of a week, arranging everything, telling, coworkers that I'm, taking a quick trip to Florida, which is like, why are you taking a quick trip to Florida? And then, going through with that and then coming back. And what it taught me was that, listening to that inner knowing is important. And often it takes more persistence and a longer term knowing and courage in the blind faith. Not necessarily like blind faith, like I don't know how it's going to turn out, but sometimes it is. I don't know how it's going to turn out because the decisions have a slower cycle of going through the process, making the change, seeing the consequence, and then understanding what it was meant to be. Here the return result, and feeling I got from it was very clear and very immediate and amazing. But often we are given a feeling, and about career, home, whatever the case may be, and it's not, the consequence isn't clear. And in that case, we do have to rely on faith and rely on that knowing. And it's hard to trust in that thing that we don't know, and it's, quieter or easy to get drowned out, especially if we're listening to our external world, or easy to forget or ignore. But it's really important to remember and think about those things. I think that voice becomes stronger for me, and that sense, that knowing, those messages become stronger for me when I take the time to be quiet, to meditate. Don't get so attached to what the day-to-day routine is. And it makes it easier to listen and to verify that the message I'm hearing is really true and consistent. And then I can have more courage to act on it. I think courage is a key part of it too. And it does rely on action. I think some aspects of intuition and surrendering are interpreted as, oh, things will happen to me. This will, be a change that I don't have control over. And, surrendering, yes, part of it is giving up control, but part of it is also taking aligned action towards what you think and what you believe. So in this case, it is, if you're getting an instinct to change a job, then you don't want to take the big action of, quitting the day you feel that. However, you might want to take the action of researching a new job. That's like an annoying when everybody's like, research, that's, seems I don't know, like a common one, but researching or writing what you think makes more sense. If you, in the world of AI, get a sense that your job's not going to be what you want it to be in 5 years or in 6 months based on how fast things are moving, what can you do to explore other options? I think obviously meditating is one of those things to help listen. Writing is also a good way to, proactively get your thoughts out and understand what's going on. And just look at other things within this, you know, ecosystem of, I would look at an opportunity to see what are, what are the possibilities. In another case, if you know, love where you live, and that's a decision that you made 5 years ago to live in a place that's like amazing and beautiful, but you get this pull that your life circumstances have changed and now it's important for you to be, closer to family, or if there's a reason to be closer to family, then, you know, what is your current situation? And, you know, that's the known, and it's the easier setting because it's your current situation. You don't need to make a big decision to change. It's almost like a daily decision of not changing. But at the same time, if you keep having this thought internally that says, well, maybe I should be closer to family, or maybe I do want to live somewhere else, like how can you make steps in that direction? And, part of that could be visiting your family for a week to see if to see if that makes a difference in your experience, or, to explore areas that are unknown. But none of these, big decisions are easy to make. And so that's why small steps to move in the direction of what that inner voice is saying is helpful, because then that can help tone down maybe your ego side of the brain a little bit, or your side that's more risk averse or doesn't want to change. It can tone down that side so you have more confidence in that big decision that you think is being messaged to you. So that's just my reflections on a quick inner decision and inner voice, knowing that I knew that I was going to visit my friend when she said she couldn't come and visit, and that I would, move and rearrange things so that that would happen. Again, I feel very lucky that I have support that could help me from the family care perspective that could help me do that. I feel lucky that I have coworkers that were supportive of that too, and lucky my friend was just visiting the US, and so it was a quick trip to see her, and feel overall very lucky that I have such an amazing best friend that I can go and visit and have such a strong spiritual connection with, and felt very honored and loved visiting her baby and her family. And it was a really enriching soul experience to see them, even though it was for less than 24 hours. And it certainly guides me to the importance of listening to that inner voice, being clear that even though this was small example of something that had a short turnaround time, it was a good example of why listening to that side is important for longer decisions, bigger decisions that might not be so easy. They can be truly nourishing for the soul. And so I would encourage you to do the same. Take those inner knowing messages seriously. Try to move in the direction that they're guiding you towards, even if it means ignoring the other side, the risk averse, maybe right brain side of your thinking that says, no, this isn't okay. So that is my episode of Return on Intuition today, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in to Return on Intuition. If something sparked your curiosity or lit you up, I'd love to hear from you. Share the episode, leave a review, or DM me with what landed. Your feedback helps shape where we go next. And remember, the best decisions don't just come from what you know, they come from what you feel. So take a breath, trust yourself, and keep following the moments that feel like magic. I'll see you next time.